Good morning and welcome back to Plan & Craft. I'm Natalie and today we are going to be doing a bit of a mini workshop on text and offset. So I have fired up Canvas Workspace. I also have shortcuts a lot running in the background in case I need it. And I hope to kind of cover it in both. So don't be afraid to say hi and let me know that you're watching. And you can find us on YouTube or Facebook today. So I've done a little bit of a kind of placeholder image just so that I can bring that in and we have something that can work with formatting, layering and framing. So rather indicatively, if that's what, we've gone for a camera photo just to say that this would be the size of our photo, so it's 6 by 4 inches. If you want to just use a standard box rather than importing a photo in, go for that. So I'm going to set that to one side for a moment and just have that just off my mat. And we're going to start by starting to create a layer that we can map this onto. So there's a couple of ways that we can do that. So let's bring in a rectangle. And I'm going to go to edit so that I can see the size of it. And I'm going to set it to the same size as my photo to start with. So that's 4 inches wide. I'm going to untick the maintain aspect ratio as well, so that then we can go and put our 6 inches in there. Just saves worrying about rotating it. I'm going to bring that a little bit in from the edge of my mat, and I'm going to use offset to take that shape outwards for a nice neat border all the way around. So at the bottom of the edit panel you'll find the offset function, and then we can set the outward amount. Now it's up to you, whichever you feel more comfortable in. If it's in inches and you don't feel particularly confident in setting small amounts in inches, you can cancel that. We'll just go to artboard and we can change our unit to millimeters. Back to edit, into offset, and then you've got millimeters. We want to go outwards because we want this layer to sit underneath our photo. And we are going to go for a round corner rather than a bevel. And the original line we no longer need, so I'm just going to delete it. Okay, so that's just going to give us a larger box. And we can go OK. That's going to do that, and you can see that we get these rounded corners. Looks quite nice, so we'll leave it there. Now, as part of this kind of little mini workshop, I've already said that we're going to do some text now. I want to just say a little bit about the built-in text. Sometimes offset doesn't always work with them, so you kind of take your chances if you go through with these. So you are better off popping your text in with a text tool, whichever text you want to use. So we could just go for a simple memory. Okay, you're going to set your font. Let's go for something a bit bolder because we're going to be cutting this out at a fairly small scale. Okay, and something like that's going to work well for this straight edge. So I'm going to rotate that round. Okay, now because we've got our photo that's going to sit over the top, I'm just going to slightly overlap. So you want it so it's very slightly overlapping, so it's going to work nicely. So if I bring my photo back in, that's going to sit about there. That looks pretty good. Okay, let's just undo that. I'm going to hide my photo for a moment, and then I can click and drag and just select those two shapes. We can then go to weld, and that's going to weld the two together, like so. So there's our first mountain layer, and now when we bring our photo back in, you can see that we've got this kind of nice framing for our image. Now, We can also pop some little photo corners on that, so we're not having to actually adhere our photos into our album if you want. So the way to do that is I'm going to zoom in like so, and this time I'm going to use the path tool. I'm going to click just below where that photo is. So you want to have a little bit of a tiny gap between where the pointer is and that first leading edge of that photo. So that's so that it has enough room to actually slot that photo in. So I'm going to click once, then we're going to go to the other side and we're going to click and click again. Okay, so those two clicks say that that line is finishing rather than joining back up to the start. So far so good. We now need to do another one if you want to just have a little line that's going to be holding your photo in, or if you just want those corners to be kind of hidden, you can leave it like that. So in this case I'm going to do a little duplicate. So if you can't get hold of the shape to be able to do alt and duplicate, what we can do instead is down the bottom of our layers panel to the left hand side of where your rubbish bin is, you've got a little duplicate button, and we can pop that there. We can then move it, and I'm going to line it up so it lines up with the bottom of our first line like so. And then we're going to scale up from this top right corner, and again you want to line up that right hand edge so it lines up with our first line. So you should have something that looks like that. Okay, so let's make these a little bit easier to grab a hold of by grouping those together. So we can do that using Command G or Control and G. Okay. You can rotate it, so you want to rotate it a total 180, like so. Even though they're the same angle, they're not the same length. And we're going to position that just slightly outside our photo up here. So, okay. So now I'm going to select all of that together and group. So at this point, all those elements we're going to want to cut. But what happens if you have something a little bit more complex that you want to kind of have cutting out of and cutting into, if that makes sense? So to show you what I mean, let's take that group that we've just done, and I'm going to set it to one side. Now, for this next one, I'm going to move my photo up a little bit because I want more of this right hand edge here. I'm going to go to my basic shapes, and this time I'm going to do a little bit more like eye, like so. Okay. And I'm going to extend this right hand edge like that. Now we're going to go to our text tool, and this time let's go for holiday. If you can type. There we go. So we've got holiday. I'm going to set my text again, but this time let's go for something that's a bit more decorative. So want something that's got a bit of shape to it. You want to avoid anything that has like the stressed edge, because those can be quite tricky to cut. Now we've got our text here, and we can see that our tails are overlapping each character. So first things first, before we do anything else, we want to weld that together. So you're going to go to Edit, Process Overlap and Weld. like so. Then we're going to rotate it. Now if we press and hold shift once we've started that rotation, we're going to be able to lock that to the upright. Now this time, whereas our memory sits all on one line nice and neatly, we've got ascenders and descenders. So we kind of need to change how we're handling that. So I'm going to first of all scale this up to kind of suit our image. So I'm going to be roughly the same height as my photo, and then we can decide where we want our text to kind of join in. Okay, so we're going to go there. And next, what I want to do is put in a duplicate, so we can do that same process again. And that's going to put a copy, and it places it down and to the right. And what we want is those two copies to be over the top of each other. So if we press and hold shift, we can then do line to center and middle. Okay, so now they're perfectly overlapping each other, and we can adjust their position accordingly. So I'm going to go about there. Now the reason that we do two copies is one of these is going to be welded to that base shape, and the other one is going to form the detail on actual solid bit of our card. So I'm going to hide my top copy just for now, and I'm going to select the one copy of the text and our base layer. We're going to go to weld, like so. So now we have something that looks like that. And you may think, well, that's not going to be very legible. And that's why we have our other copy. So if I bring that back in. Now, you could leave it like that and cut that holiday out of a separate colour and layer it over the top. In actual fact, if that's something that you think you might want to do at some point, take an additional copy of that text right now. And we can pop that somewhere else. Okay. So let's just do that very quick. And we'll pop that down there. Now, for this copy here, I'm just going to bring this up above my base shape. It's going to make sense why I do that in a minute, because I'm going to be doing some subtracting work, and we want to make sure that that text stays on top. Next, what we would need to do is, if we were to subtract this at the moment, all we're going to end up doing is just having this bottom section instead, and possibly a few very strandy wisps of the text at the top. That isn't what we want. We want to just subtract this bottom half. So we have to do a little bit of work on the shape to get it there. So I'm going to go to my basic shapes again, bring in a square. Now I'm going to bring that square in, and I'm going to offset it slightly so you can see where it's actually going. And I'm going to resize that down like so. So we want it to sit in a good ways inside this edge of our base shape. Okay. We're then going to select that and copy of the text here, so that we've got both selected. Then what we're going to do, we're going to use subtract to take that away from our text. So go to edit, and then we're going to go to subtract, which is this last one here. So you can see then that your rectangle is going to disappear. Now when I click off, you should hopefully be able to recognise that that still says holiday. If it isn't quite recognising when you're reading it, just step back. So just go undo and just readjust that rectangle so that you have a little bit less of a border, and then redo that subtract again. That's a little better. Okay, so then we can read the word holiday. Now what you'll be really tempted to at this point is get your text here and this base one and subtract it. And if you know, that was all you wanted to do with this file, I'd say go ahead, do that. But if you want to keep yourself with open options for like future projects, or if you're selling the file, then what I would say is don't actually subtract it, just group it for now. So we can just select that and our shape there, and we can just group. Okay, but there's another little option. So you might want to do things like layering in terms of having an additional outline around your text. So this time I'm going to put in another rectangle, and this is going to give you a double layer. So I'm going to first of all stretch that around my photo. I'm not too worried that it's not perfectly centered, just as long as it, you know, fits round. And let's go for, I want something a little bit shorter this time, so I think I'm just going to go for photo. And I'm going to go back to that first font just for something nice and simple. I'm going to rotate it again, so use that shift to lock into the upright. Move it over the top. Okay. And we can then select that and our rectangle. And we're going to weld those two together. Now for the next step. So this is to create the layer underneath. So we can go to offset, and we want to leave original line as is this time. You can go for the 5mm again if you want. It may be a bit too big, so I'm going to take this down to about 3. And we want it to go outside and inside too. So untick that box. That means that if there's space in the centre of our O's, it's going to cut out those two. So at this point we can go OK, and there we go. So we now have our mat and our layer. So there is another option, and I'm going to group those together. So let's get all of that and group. So one more technique to do, and then if you want to show you in shortcuts a lot, do try and comment. I'm not entirely sure my comments are working. Oh, that's very quiet. Let me just check to see if YouTube's playing ball. Who knows? The comment's working though. So I'm going to pop. That's okay then. I just thought maybe it could. So I'm going to do this first stage of setup the exact same again. So we've got. Okay. So we've got our base rectangle. We're going to go to our text. We'll put photo in again. We'll rotate it and line that up. Now this time what I want to do, rather than having it do a separate layer, I just want it to kind of do an outline around the text here. So I'm going to line this up. Excuse me. I'm going to offset it. And we're going to offset it outwards. 3mm is quite a significant border, so you should be okay with whichever font you want to use. And we want to leave original line as is. And we're going to go OK. So then we've got this border shape going around the outside. And again, we need to do a little bit of work before we merge those two together. Hi Deb, that's okay, don't worry about being a bit late. And we're going to select over the top of the two. We're going to use subtract, and it's going to go around the wrong way. Now, remember how I was saying about layers and the importance of? If you have that, chances are your layers are just round the wrong way. So just drag the bigger layer to the bottom. And there we go. Edit, match, subtract, and this time we have what is visibly not much change, but in terms of the fill, it's quite a big change. So let's put a fill in so you can see what's actually happening. So then we have our photo border. Now we have these little areas in here which obviously at the moment are floating loose. Try not to be too concerned about those at the moment. There's a few different ways that we can work with those. So you can decide which of those works for you. So let's take that border now and our original rectangle, and we're going to weld the two together. So now our border shape is welded to our main photo mat. So this can be a way of having a finer text in a legible form without you having to worry about the fact that is it suitable for cutting, etc., etc., by taking it away from a larger shape. So a few little things to look for, and I'm going to zoom in here. When you're working with text, the more detailed the font, the more likely you are to have this happen. But you can end up with little bits like this, where it's not really big enough to actually make that much of a difference in terms of your actual design, but it is big enough to upset your machine. So if we click twice and then click on the node, we're going to delete that node away. And there we go. Just get rid of those little shapes. Now, I did say I would say about circles in the centres, how you can handle that. So what you can do is, let's say we've got this P here. I'm going to bring in a square. It's going to bring it in so big that it's really not the size that you want it. So let's drag that in here, and we're going to shrink that right down, like so. Now, just so that you can see what's going on, I'm just going to put a red fill in that, so it's going to match our design. And let's pop that over the top of our P there. And we can scale that down, like so. So that we can then have that so it looks still like a P, but it's holding that centre in. Okay, and we can do the same with the O, and if you want to kind of replicate that, and then you avoid looking like you've done two C's instead, by putting out on this left hand edge, and then we've got a flow through for that join. So then you can just highlight those pieces. We can check that the right one selected are in here, and we can weld that together like so. Then we've got photo. So you can see now why I started with that P, so that we've got the size for that section there, and then it echoes through to O's. So for those of you that joined late, let's just zoom back out and quickly go back over everything else we've done. And it's going to zoom too far. Okay, so we have our holiday mat and layer. So basically the idea being that you have this outer cut line, and you can choose whether you cut the inner detail from that same rectangle, or if you want to put a contrasting colour over the top using our text here. We've got a double matten layer so that your text is supported by the layer underneath, and we've also done just a plain old photo map with the text welded. So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you want to see that same process in Shortcut Slot? Is there another idea that you'd like me to explore and show you how to do in Canvas? Move that up there just a little bit. So I'm not going to fit these all onto one map, but at the very least you can kind of squidge them up a bit. Okay. So if there are any questions now, is the time to ask. If you want to see shortcuts a lot, let me know. Or if you want to see affinity, I can do that too. Otherwise, I'll leave it there for today. So this was just a little mini workshop. So we do full day, half day, and weekend workshops as well. So there's currently one that you have access to for affinity, that you can purchase that through our online store. So if you're looking for that, that's plannercraft.co.uk. And I hope you enjoy that kind of whistle stop talk around how to use text to create photo mats. So coming up for the next 4 weeks in this slot will be Linda, and she is doing a 4-week vlog project, and that's going to be a mini album. So hopefully you'll see why I've done this one, so that you can kind of tie the two in together. And that's going to be on plannercraft.uk, and there will be a post with every post that goes live, so you'll see that that goes up on Facebook and hopefully on YouTube community too. So take care, and I look forward to seeing you next time. So on Friday we have the cut sheet workshop, so that's going to be worth dropping in for. That's a pre-record, so it'll be a YouTube premiere. Then tomorrow Lucy's doing a traditional art vlog, so that's going to be showing you some interesting new materials that are going to make your art a little bit more sustainable. So take care, see you then, bye for now.